So now that we've solarized our soil, what's the next thing to do? We want to bring this back to life. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be first removing this plastic that we've had down for the past 8 weeks and letting you see firsthand what grows up under this. It's the first time this has been moved in the 8 weeks. And absolutely nothing growing up under it. You got a little bit going on the edges where we didn't get it all covered up, but everything from the inside is gone. And this is biodegradable. And as you can see, this plastic has already started to break down, just for those who want to know. So again, this has been down for 8 weeks. And you get to see this at the same time that I see it. We're going to turn it for the last time. And then we're going to a no-till. We've gotten the temperatures up to maybe 110 to 120. Nothing is going to want to live in this. This bed's, again, been solarized. And what we're trying to do now is bring it back to life, which means we need to be bringing in as much organic material as we possibly can. And then we're going to bring in some cover crops that's not only going to feed the soil, it's going to feed us also. This is the perfect cover crop that gives you a little bit of both worlds. They only grow up to 18 inches tall. But what I want to do with these is just allow them to grow wild all over this bed. And we're going to just let them flop around. And once the season is over with and the winter comes in and they start to die off, that's going to be our chop and drop. Not only are we going to be feeding the soil with these legumes, we're going to be feeding the family as well. We have these beautiful 3-inch pods that's going to be filling us up with lots of peas over the course of the winter. What I have here is my alfalfa pellets. And this is a 2:1:2 NPK ratio, but we're going to do that a little later. So right now we're just going to turn this. Should have just broad forked it because we're going to be putting at least 3 inches of compost over the top of this bed. And we're going to be planting our little marble peas inside this bed. You see how easy that's going in? So we're not really turning the whole thing. We just want to loosen this up to get some air in there. And all I'm doing here is I'm going to grade this out a little bit to make sure we get it a little level. So now we're going to take some peat moss. See, we have our beautiful compost here. And this is the stuff that I make. That's going to be our organic matter that's going back into this bed. And then we're just going to mix that peat moss in good with this compost. But we want this to look like one beautiful blend, all blended together, that peat moss and that compost. So now we're going to go back to our alfalfa pellets. We're going to do that all over the entire bed. That's going to be part of our organic matter that we're putting back into this bed. This is organic alfalfa pellets, 2:1:2 NPK ratio. Now we're going to make this compost even better than what it is because we're going to add some aged leaf mold from last year. This has been over on the other side of the garage for about a year. And those earthworms are going to love this. Look at that. It's mycelium. That's what's in that leaf mold. We're just going to mix that in with it. Go ahead and spread some of this out over here. Let me show you something. See all of that white right there? That's mycelium. That's the fungus that's breaking down all of that leaf mold. Now, of course, we're disturbing it right now, but we're putting that back into the soil And we're gonna let all of those fungi and bacteria go to work in breaking this stuff down. It's like an overhaul on the engine of the car. You're pretty much taking everything out and you're putting everything back in that you wanted. So all of the earthworms have moved out, all the nematodes, all the beneficial microorganisms, everything has moved out of this bed. And what we're doing right now is we're replenishing it. And this is what we do after we solarize our soil. We bring the life back into it. You're not gonna overdo it. And that's it. Use the rest of this. Feed these other plants. Here we are about 14 days after we've planted our low marble sweet peas. And as you can see here, they're coming up very nice. Now we've already inoculated our compost. One of the most important things that you have to remember after solarizing your soil is you are literally destroying all the microbiology in the soil. Everything that's not good for the soil, you're going to be taking that out. When you take out the bad, you're also going to be taking out the good. So we have to replenish all of that, which means we need to bring this soil back to life. We've already put our compost down. And when you look at this compost, one little pinch has trillions of bacteria in it. We're going to add some more of our compost tea on this. We're going to take you over to my little brewer and show you where we get our compost tea. And we're gonna fix up maybe 2 gallons to spread over our compost. It's gonna start breaking this compost down, and that's what's gonna make it available to the plants. Remember, because these little marble sweet peas are not just for a harvest, they're actually gonna be for ground cover. They'll get probably about 11 inches in height, and then they'll just start to drape over the ground. They really don't like that frost, and we're looking, I think Tuesday it's gonna be down to 32 degrees. So these are going to start to fall off. We're getting that cold in a little sooner than I thought, but hey, that's what this whole thing is all about, creating microclimates and starting to garden for the future, and basically preparing the garden to be able to withstand some of these temperature changes that we're going to be experiencing, the ups, the downs. Here we are, October 28th, and we're having our first freeze of the year. It's definitely something that we're going to have to adjust to, not only this year, but in the years to come. So that's what we're doing all around the garden and creating these microclimates. And I'm gonna just touch on this a little bit. You see you got your snap peas here coming up, and the peppers actually add a little protection to the snap peas. So that's what I'm talking about when I speak of microclimates. We want to have everything in the garden working together just as our soil biology. So we're gonna take you over to our compost tea, and we're gonna fill this 2-gallon canister up. And you see we got the solar powered compost brewer going here. And this stuff's been going for about 48 hours. The temperature I think today is right around 75. And that's what you want. You want that temperature to be pretty close to what the area is around you. And what we have here is some of my homemade compost. I'm gonna take a couple of scoops out of this. Look how beautiful that is. That's why they call it tea. Has that nice little brown look. So I'm gonna put like 8 scoops in there. And you see that pump will go on and off. You see, even on my cap, I got the screen to keep the mosquitoes out, and all I did was just hot glue that in place. I'll be showing a video on how I put this together. I think it's a neat little contraption. You can move it anywhere around in the garden that you want. And this is what I like about this thing. There's actually several different settings, but you can look at my little compost bag here. And we just sit that down up in there. And that's pretty much where I like to brew at, 2.5 gallons. So we'll put that back on there, and then we'll go over here to my rainwater and put some of that in there. It's Right here I have one of my rain barrels, and we're just gonna fill this up. Now, one of the main things that you want to take into consideration when we're doing this solarization, this particular bed that I'm working on right now, I'm still on the city water, which has that chloramine in it, and that literally destroys your soil when we put that stuff in. Now, I'm not set up completely to be able to use my rain barrels all throughout the garden, but for this particular bed, I definitely only want to use my rainwater, because if I put that chloramine along with those microorganisms, it's basically going to be working against myself. They'll still live, but a lot of them will be killed off. That is exactly what the chloramine is designed to do in our drinking water. So let's go back over here to our sweet peas. So now that we're back over here to our sweet peas, the only thing that we're gonna do is we're just gonna water this in, because again, the whole point of solarizing your soil is to take out the bad and put back the good. You see that nice color that's coming out of there? This is not about an NPK. And what this is gonna do is gonna get this soil life to jumping. I'm gonna try to get all the plants. Because again, when we solarize our soil, we are essentially taking everything out. That's the good and the bad bacteria. When we're solarizing our soil, there are just some basic things that we're trying to get to. One, we're trying to get rid of all the weeds, the grasses, and not only the weeds and the grasses, but the seeds that come along with that. When you solarize your soil, you're also going to be getting rid of the pathogens that are in the soil. While the compost tea is not so much about the nutrients going into the soil, with the compost and the compost tea and all of that combined with all the microorganisms, it's going to make the availability of the nitrogen in the soil available to the plants. And that's going to make for a healthier plant, less disease, and even less insects. Basically, the overall principle of solarization is just taking everything out and putting it back in, taking the good, the bad out, and putting only the good back in. And that is the reason why we solarize our soil growing out the box.